You've probably heard of the classic retro game Tetris. Originating from the USSR, Tetris became a worldwide sensation after Nintendo and Atari reproduced the game and created variations and versions that have evolved over time. Over 70 million copies of the physical version of the game have been sold worldwide, and this doesn't even include versions bought online or used in emulators. It's well known for its simple gameplay mechanics and tetromino shapes. Tetris can be arguably one of the most timeless games of history, enhancing skills of precision and order. Tetris has a simple goal: to keep playing for as long as possible. You do this by clearing rows of blocks as quickly and efficiently as possible without touching the ceiling. You have to use translations and rotations to fit pieces onto the stage based on previous tetromino placements. During gameplay, random Tetris pieces fall from the top of the stage until they make contact with the board or another piece and momentarily lock into place. Rows are cleared by filling them completely with blocks, at which point they are removed, and blocks above fall down by the number of rows cleared, providing more space. You earn points by clearing as many as possible in one turn, with the bonus in some renditions of Tetris for clearing the entire board. In order to achieve successful gameplay, players must know how to rotate in both directions and translate the pieces efficiently. Complex and well-timed rotations, such as twists, can award the players more points when done correctly. For example, T-spins involve twisting a T-piece into the orientation you want it to go in, and may award points based on the game variation and the type of T-spin. You can also do twists with other pieces, such as the eyepiece. Here's an example where you can rotate twice in order to get into the hole. Note that different Tetris games have different standard rotation systems, so you may want to do some research on your game and strategize accordingly. One of the fundamental characteristics of Tetris is the geometry of their iconic piece shapes. Each piece, defined as a tetromino, occupies 4 adjacent tiles on the game board, but in 7 unique configurations: O, J, L, S, Z, T, and I. Tetris utilizes all the unique configurations that 4 cells can be connected together. Since there are only 7 ways to do so, we have 7 unique pieces. In order to formulate a strategy, you might also want to consider the order in which the pieces are given to you. Some games allow you to foresee 1 piece ahead of time, whereas some will allow you 3. Some may not provide additional information at all. What you could do is look into the type of piece generator that your Tetris game uses to determine pieces. Most games that fall under official Tetris guidelines for tournaments and records use a system called the random generator, which isn't exactly as it sounds. It follows the rule: take a complete set of 7 unique tetrominos and distribute them randomly, as opposed to pick one of the 7 randomly every time. We refer to the first one as the grab bag rule. Older games picked pieces randomly each time, which can skew the proportions of piece distribution, and results in torturous combinations of pieces like getting only Z or S pieces 10 times in a row. The grab bag rule prevents this from happening, and the worst that could happen is that you get 4 S and Z pieces in a row. Keeping the grab bag formula in mind, we can take advantage of the fact that every set of 7 pieces has no repeating pieces within each set to formulate strategies. If executed perfectly, you can even play forever. I'll walk through an example of an infinite loop. According to Tetris Wiki, there is a standard procedure we can follow to infinitely reap Tetrises when you clear the maximum of 4 rows simultaneously. This involves creating looping structures in such a way that the board can be cleared. This procedure has several parts. For the procedure itself, an STZ loop, an LJO loop, and an I piece loop. To balance the surplus, we use an LO piece loop and an IJ piece loop. This procedure requires that you're playing a newer rendition of Tetris that has 3 previews, uses the grab bag formula, and that you are able to hold pieces. The hold function allows you to save 1 piece at a time and swap out for another piece later on over the course of the game. You are able to do this multiple times, but you cannot hold a piece immediately after swapping. To begin setting up, we begin with the standard method, where STZ pieces will occupy the left, LJ and O pieces will be on the right, and I pieces will fill the middle. I will be annotating on Tetris board graphics from the Tetris Wiki page for easier visualization. The STZ pattern loops after 4 bags of pieces. Each bag may have requirements on the order of placement, so we may need to use the hold button to adjust the order. In the first bag, the Z piece must drop after T. In the the second bag, the T piece must not drop first. In the third bag, the T piece must land diagonally adjacent to the T piece in the previous bag. In the fourth bag, the T piece must drop last. The LJO loop repeats after only one bag of pieces, but the configuration and orientation depends on the order of the pieces. Here we have a situation in which the O piece is first, where the O piece is last, and where the O comes in between the L and J pieces. There are some situations in which you may face some difficulty in getting the pieces to fit together because you don't know the exact order of the pieces. You may end up with impossible placements. To avoid this, you would hold either the L or J piece in order to allow the O piece to enter the gap, or hold the O piece to allow a J or L piece to enter. Be careful as to not let the hold function interfere with the STZ piece loop. The I piece loop is simple. Just fill the middle two columns vertically and try to allot some space for pieces to move around when necessary. 2 bags are required to loop. Now you may be wondering, if it takes 4 bags to get through the STZ loop, 1 for an LJO loop, and 2 for the I loop, there's bound to be some sort of imbalance. The STZ loop after 4 bags is 12 blocks tall. The LJO loop after 4 bags is also 12 blocks tall, but the I loop after 4 bags is only 8 blocks tall. This means we have a net surplus of 4 blocks in the STZ loop and the LJO loop. In order to balance the board, we need to change strategy. We will address this as the balancing method. This involves an L and O piece loop on one side and an IJ piece loop in the center. You continue using the STZ loop from before, but you will have to switch sides after 4 bags. The LO piece loop requires 2 bags. The order in which they are placed does not matter as long as they are in their appropriate rotations. The IJ piece loop requires 2 bags. The order of placement nor the orientation matters because of row clearing. You can use a variation. A JO loop and an IL loop would work as a balancing procedure just as well. Now to put it all together, if you do 12 bags of the standard procedure, 4 bags of the balancing procedure, and another 4 bags of the balancing procedure but mirrored, you will clear the board completely without fail. But we are human, and so we make mistakes. Let's say you slip up on this perfect strategy somewhere somehow. Are you still able to clear the board? Given any configuration of pieces, are you able to clear everything given some unknown string of pieces? This is an example of something called an NP complete problem. What is that? In computational mathematics, problems can be classified as P problems, NP problems, NP complete problems, and NP hard problems. These problems are organized by difficulty and time complexity. Some are subsets of each other, and some overlap. To be clear, humans aren't solving these problems by hand. We're using computers or machines, and we'll be discussing the properties of these kinds of problems they solve, including the time it takes to solve them. If we're given a time complexity expression and its relationship to the algorithm using something called Big O language, we can get a sense of the complexity of the problem. T of n equals O of n squared means the time taken to do problem n is proportional to n squared. The x-axis represents the number of parts or elements within a problem, and the y-axis represents the number of operations carried out, which is related to the time spent solving. Here's a general breakdown. Let's start with explaining P problems. P problems are the easier kind to work with. There's usually a quick and absolute way to get straight to the answer and are solved in polynomial time, which results in a time expression of O of n to the k. This means the time solving for n is proportional to n to some power k. In polynomial time problems, k is typically less than n. This is a subset of NP problems. The more complex the problem, the more time it will take, but the process remains the same. Examples of P problems include pathfinding and basic operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. NP problems are quick to verify but slow to solve. These don't have a deterministic way of getting the answer immediately like P problems, but they can be verified or certified in polynomial time. These require a lot of trial and error to solve. We expect these algorithms to have an exponential complexity. We would have a time expression of T of n is equal to O of some constant C1 times k to the power of another constant C2 times n. Examples include Sudoku, protein folding, and cryptography. NP-complete problems are also quick to verify, slow to solve, but can also be reduced to any other NP-complete problem. Reduction basically means transforming the problem into a different way that might be easier for a machine trying to solve it to understand. This is an overlapping section. NP-complete problems are both considered NP and NP-hard. One method used to solve these is to use a polynomial algorithm to approximate the solution. This might not necessarily be optimal, but will be close enough. NP-hard problems are slow to verify, slow to solve, and can be reduced to any other NP problem, but may not necessarily be NP. These are considered to be the hardest computational math problems because solutions can't be easily checked or verified. People also find difficulty in classifying them as NP-hard and/or NP-complete. Several computer scientists have collaborated and put forth agreeing proofs that optimizing Tetris objectives are NP-complete problems. Hendrik Jan Hoogboom and Walter A. Koesters from the Leiden Institute in the Netherlands delves into a proof that demonstrates that clearing a Tetris board given any configuration of pieces is an example of an NP-complete problem. Eric Deman, Susan Hohenberger, and David Liben-Noel from MIT use their findings to further assert that other objectives of Tetris were defined to be NP-complete, such as maximizing the number of rows cleared while playing the given piece sequence, maximizing the number of pieces placed before you lose, maximizing the number of times a Tetris occurs, and minimizing the height of the highest filled grid square over the course of the sequence. Verifying Tetris solutions takes trial and error, and takes an extensive amount of time to verify if anything was an optimal play. Wow, we only scratched the surface about the mathematical properties of Tetris, and I encourage you to delve deeper. But just to recap what we went over today. We went over isometric properties of rotation and translation in Tetris gameplay mechanics. We also discussed the geometry of tetromino shapes and their generation formula in order to develop and implement strategies. We also discussed the role of Tetris in computational mathematics in the context of NP-complete problems. I hope this video was insightful and encouraged you to dive deeper into the mathematical properties of Tetris. Thank you for watching.